Right. Okay, so I want to lead you to organize your shape into some sequencing that helps the respiratory, but it's really going to start with a chest and a hip opener. So the basic setup for your props is a couple blankets, make a big stack that's almost the stack of your bolster right behind the bolster, right? And so I want it to be lengthwise. So you're going to have it straight back, room for your arms that way. Bolster is horizontal across your mat. You're going to sit right in front of the bolster, not on it, okay? And taking just simply crossing the legs and get a hold of a couple blocks besides your thighs, upper leg. Have a sandbag nearby, and if you have a therapy ball next to your bolster. And then I want you to first bring the feet forward so they're just side by side. Have your belt connected in a loop, and then placing that loop around the back of your pelvis. And then bring the knees out, the soles of the feet together, and scoop up your feet. Okay, now the feet are going to stay on the ground. But I do want you to tighten the belt up so much that it is going to feel as if there is pull, a little bit of resistance here at the very top of your thigh, right? So it's going to gather to your feet. And what I like when I use the blocks, and I would say this is important, especially if you're seasoned practitioner, to use blocks, because the SI joint, this gets it gets weathered in the yoga practice, and you want to use this for stability in the sacroiliac joint, not to overstretch it, okay? Don't overdo it. Okay, so the thighs rest out. I put my block and just tip it so it's contoured under my thigh, so it kind of pushes my thighs to look like they're just a little bit bigger, right? I want that. And then as my hips center back, I'm going to get my sand. And if you're not using sand, that's a-okay. But you might like the sand if you're in this horizontal cobbler's pose, right? It's both horizontal chest opener and Supta Baddha Konasana. So they're connecting. We're connecting the two shapes in one to begin. So it can be a world of challenge just to arrive. So you might find this blanket stack is too low. You might be surprised because of how advanced the arch is through not just the lumbars, but the thoracics are kind of get a little confused. We're not trying to arch them. We're just arching the lower 5 vertebrae. We're trying to expand them out. So the bolster is thus horizontal. So I would say try to get that sandbag across that rib intersection. If you're having a difficult time with breath right now, put the sandbag aside, come back to it maybe in a minute or so. And then as you kind of start to peel open these layers of circulation in the respiratory tree, which is the bronchial tubes, the throat, the upper lung, I would say let the chest really work with opening that. Not so much the lumbars are taken care of. You can scoot your tailbone under. You can get your blocks so they're closer in. Mine feel like they're just set. I don't want to mess with that. So don't mess with something that feels like it's just okay, because the breathing and how you arrive with peeling open the layers that might be just in their habit before class, right? They might be in their postural kind of slump. So now we're stretching them open. So be patient and not too ambitious. Just laying back with all the support of your props. And feature that length of the inhale through the nose. And with your out breath, simply empty the lungs. And that pressure of the sand may feel as if the breath is, not as lengthy as you were hoping, because it's kind of in charge of that kind of piston-like action of the breathing muscles. So you might find that you like to use it sometimes, or you take the sand off on this pose. The weight training for the breathing muscles, right, is beginning. Let's take about another full minute here. Just scanning the sensation from the feet. And pour your awareness into your practice today. It's just a sliver of time, but just pour your focus into that inner environment, the sensation, and the support from the props, from the guidance, from coming together to practice. And maybe feeling if the belly just pumps up and down, right, which would be that diaphragmatic pulse. You can take the sand off and just take the last few moments in this specific shape with the opportunity for the ribs to move out. So it's that horizontal. So it's between belly lifts, abdominals flow, ribs flow out. Now, if you're curious about using the upper extremities to feature a little bit more spaciousness, right, it can help with that feature. You might bring the arms a little further back, depends on how the shoulders and even the neck responds. And you may just find that reaching them back towards that blanket overhead or holding onto the elbows. I like just to feel that fluidity of my extremities, the upper extremities reaching. Let the belly move with the breath. Don't feel like you're trying to cinch or zip up that core, but you're letting it move with the inhale and landing on the exhale. But that's life. Landing on the exhale. Okay, let's start to shift our shape. We're going to keep the props about the same, but we'll move the belt. So just carefully reaching down. Maybe you can find the buckle. Maybe it's a little farther down to your feet, but release the loop free. And then we're going to try this for the hips. So I want you to try, just lift the knees so the bottoms of the feet step down so that you're in a standing foot position. Soles of the feet down. And then just feeling that arch through the lower back. You could play a little bit with lifting the pelvis, just a slight pelvic tilt, not all the way to a bridge pose. But feel how you articulate that arch of the spine and that flex. So feel like a mini cat-cow. Okay, now let's bring that right ankle to cross over to the left knee. And then I'm going to take my blanket. Now this is completely up to you if you want to orient this, but I'm going to fold my blanket up one more fold under my head. So it's just a little easier across the base of my spine. Even though this is my upper spine, I float it up a bit with the blanket, and then it makes it a little easier on the rest of my spine to just feel more comfortable with pressure. So my right ankle to left knee, I'm going to take a ball and place it to the upper outer left thigh. I'm going to actually nudge it into that upper outer left thigh. Okay, I'm going to keep the block over on that left side. And then as I let my knees both tilt to the left, let the side of that left foot relax and hold on to that right knee with the left hand. And then as the right arm stretches out versus behind you, right? So I want you to move this right arm open, just like it goes anyway, right? Nothing that's unnatural here, but as the arm opens out, feeling those cross fibers into the right hip. But be sure you're pretty cozy with the ball support if you're using the block. I would use a block if everyone's got longer legs than me. So I understand that most people, the foot is almost on the floor if it's for sure touching down. So I use the block right beside my left knee, and it's under my right foot right now. And I just add that in so I don't flop over, right? I don't want to roll into my hip or cross over and kind of flop on the ground with my legs. So I hold on to that right knee with the left hand, and I'm actually guiding that knee towards the left, a little bit towards me, but towards the left side. Okay, feeling the circulation in the right hip. Of course, you could move the knees further to that left side if you want more stretch. But working on stability, and just scan where the sensation is starting to peel open in that right hip. And let go of the knee, and then taking your ball, and you're going to place it under that the right buttock. You place it at the buttock, which is at the back anyway, huh? And as you roll, uncross that right foot from the left knee, and see if you can actually push a little bit into your bolster towards the right side of the waist and massage in towards that right hip. This might be one where you actually almost come up, even though you're going to be on the ball. You could roll a little to that right side and come up and then push into the ball a little bit further. I like to just be relaxing back with my neck. I don't want to tighten my neck up. So even though I don't get as much of a deeper tissue work with my head back, I'd rather not tighten my neck. Okay. Some people would rather sit up on it. So whether you are sitting upright or lying back, the ball is under the right, it's at the right buttock, and you're trying to glide across the surface muscles, right? The glute. So whether the right foot is stretching down or it's crossed to the left knee, either is fine. Take a few moments and feeling where you can actually let pressure go into that ball, press into it, and then nudge across. And just create some heat and some warmth into the glutes. And then we'll keep the ball on the right side, just right next to that upper outer right thigh, or right next to the hip. So right now it's pretty close in there, isn't it? Left ankle crosses to the right knee. I'm going to sit my tailbone back to the bolster, and then I'm going to lean the knees to the right. Yeah, so what I find is when I enter that second side, I did pretty good getting that first side warmed up. Now you, again, might keep your blanket this high up. You might decide that's not necessary for you, okay? The bottom foot, the right foot, really should be sickled. So instead of heel down, you really want to contour the side of the right foot. So you're kind of on the bones on the side of the foot. That's going to help you with that movement and that rotation into the hip. Even though it's the right foot, right? It's the left hip you're stretching. So as you gather that left knee into your hand, okay, guide it across to the right. And if there happens to be a block over there that's helping you out, if it seems to be in the way and like it's a bother, then you can push it away. And it is important to explore your range of motion, and then finding if you get to that end range, and maybe you back off, maybe your left arm is open on this one, using that bolster to really help open up this chest area. If we can spend the first 20, 25 minutes doing this, it will help, right? That length in the spine, that daily like slump habit, right? Really try to get some emphasis and support in the breathing muscles. So I'm just holding on to the left knee with the right hand. My leg is crossed over to the right knee. The left foot is. Guess not my whole leg, just my foot. And kind of feeling how the bones in the leg still point outwards like we did in the beginning in cobbler. It's kind of like a half cobbler pose, right? As far as the joint structure is. And now if you could feel where that ball is on the right side, on the hip area, you do want to let your weight just kind of reach into it. Just feel how you drop towards the ball. And you're holding the knee for a few more moments. Breathing. And now let go. Bring the knees back center, take the ball, and you could do a little bit of windshield wiper, just means sway side to side with the lower extremities. And then just place the ball to the upper outer left buttock, and you'll just roll up on it, okay? So sometimes that's swiping across and then guide the ball in so you're not tightening to get on the ball. And you have to have it really close to the bolster right here. And there is some benefit to this approach to it. Again, some of us might go ahead and lean into that left rib cage and just kind of come up and just press down. So you're going, the musculature, you can glide up and down, right? The hip versus across. You can kind of play with how you work on self-massage, which is pressure and movement, right? Together. You know, finding that perfect access point into the tight spaces, right? The clamped up muscles of the glutes. So as I swipe across, I might even find where I know, like kind of that glute medius is where it gets to be pretty gripped up when I roll, right? I can feel like, well, that's kind of, it's a little bit, feels good, right? That's kind of part of it. Oh, that feels like it could use that massage, that circulation, that portal from my pelvis into my hip joint, right? How I access movement. And this also helps with not only our range of motion, right? Okay, but as we feel movement, make sure you go across the glute, so around to the back area, all the way towards that gluteal fold. And then let's just take it easy. We're just gonna roll to the left, and then you're kind of on the ball. So as you roll to that left side on the bolster, let's go ahead and shift back and then take the ball out. And if you've got your belt just on your mat, just slide it across, so it's off the mat. And then let's get our sandbag. And I would just put it on the left inner leg for a few moments here to kind of set up the alignment. So we're not really going off course with the hip movement. This can be tricky for people's knees, so I'm going to encourage you to take it easy here with the knee touching the left foot. Just guide it towards the left knee. And then let's take our blankets and we're just going to turn them so they're horizontal as well as the bolster on the mat, and get a hold of a block or two. Place them 1 to 2 overhead. If you find this is a bit tiring on your shoulder, like up here, if your bicep tendon, it feels like it's just tightening up in the stretch, you might put like a chair or a stool or something a little higher on the other side of your blanket. So you can always bring more height and it makes it easier for the shoulder. But this is like, I think, a pretty good lift. Okay, so we're gonna go into side sage. So let's take that reach of the right leg. So this leg recently, let's see, you have the ball, you're rolling right to the glute. So now this left thigh or right thigh is going to turn in. You're going to place maybe a ball. I know a couple of you don't use a ball in this one. So one ball for some. And then as you lean down, the left hip is next to the bolster. My left side of the torso reaches up onto it. And sometimes when you're solo with a sandbag, you might just kind of fuss around with it and just decide, okay, do I want it lengthwise down my side? Do I want it turn to my hip? And so what are we trying to feel here to advance the circulation? Okay, so you want to feel like it's it's definitely contained in your side, and you're trying to connect the extremities, right, with the rib cage. That's what it is, or it's a connector. So as I extend the right arm over, I let my brain rest into the blanket. This might be where you start, just feeling the weight of your head rest on the blanket. And then the extremities kind of take care of themselves, right? Even though your brain, right, is guiding you into ways to go, this is a great practice to kind of get out of that, like really feel for yourself the parts of you, right, that desperately need some circulation and support. So when you reach with the arm, you're also reaching with the ribs. And you let your head relax so that your neck isn't gripping up further here. So if that means your right arm needs to be a little bit further back, just open, or sporadically down on the right side of you, that's okay. Okay, right leg stretches back. So let that hip flexor so as abdominal muscles get a really nice reach, the side abdominals. I love this shape. And then continue the focus of resting your head. So what I did there was I just let my elbow kind of drop down, let my head drop into the blanket, and breathe. And just trusting in the pose, right? These are passed on, these poses, these therapeutic shapes. So feeling the muscles between the ribs move via the breath. See if there's any more you can let go, especially in the neck here. If the blanket seems too high, you can always take one off. Maybe you want more tilt in the jaw. It's up to you. But as the weight releases in the neck muscles, take a few more breaths here. Now, as you remove the sand, we're going to create a bit of a squeezing effect here, some heat into the ribs, the organs, right? Because that's going to rotate spine and then squeeze into the organs. So you'll just move the sand, as I mentioned, and you'll just turn towards the bolster. So you're making a little bit of a twist. We're going to work quite a bit on this and kind of energizing shapes for our for the organ. So as I turn, I just have my hands on the other side of the bolster, flat on the ground between the bolster and blankets. And my right thigh could stack on my left thigh. If that's easier for your hip, your back, your knee. You might find that you can work on this twist pattern. So my hands, so I like to use the bolster so it kind of forms this support for my wrist and my forearm. Okay, and then as your hands stretch open through the fingers, because that's the only way to do that. Okay, we'll bring the right knee to the left and we'll just turn so we're in table pose and come into cat pose. So round the back and arch the spine. Okay, now feeling that how you coordinate the space between the breaths here, because one breath per movement, I think that's a good way to teach, but you want to find that space that you kind of wait for. It's just a moment in between in and out breath, that still point. So as you arch through the spine, and then feel that medley of roller coaster down the back, and then come back to that arch. Okay, now what's kind of left out here in some ways, we're just going to push the blankets a little further forward, turn the bolster lengthwise. And you know, that movement pattern is interesting, but of course then we have the lower extremities that we can add into it. So be close enough. If you're right against the wall, you might have to push your bolster further forward. I don't want you to have to bend your knees a lot if your legs are pushing the wall, but come into an up dog and kind of feel how that quality of that awareness into your lower back now. Okay, and that's going to go into your glutes, right? Those are going to kind of wake up. So pressing down through the palms. If your knees need a blanket under them, you can always add one. And as you're arching, now feel how you reach the chest forward. Okay, remember it's to help you out. So however you proceed, right? If you go slowly with gravity, I'm hoping. So pull the blankets in and bring the left elbow up onto the blanket, and then bring the right hand to that right foot, maybe. I know this is a bit of a quad stretch, so some of us might find, oh, it's a lot. So if it's not accessible, instead of grabbing your belt and like creating a whole challenge with it, just let both arms be forward and bend through the knee. That's okay. All right. Yeah, otherwise you feel like you're attacking you're attacking the pose, right? Getting a belt there. So I try to bring my heel to my rear, but instead of the focus of got it, heel to rear, I'm also trying to scoot my tailbone under, and maybe I can start to feel the stretch on the front of that right thigh. I think you can. Okay, but keep the knee, everything's pointing down. I'm not trying to pivot and twist my knee at all. No twists on the knees. Not in this stretch because I'm pulling the quad so deeply. Okay, let go of the foot, thank goodness. Take a moment, arch the spine. Okay, let the pelvis, right, the hips push down a little bit. So I'm not pushing my hands down, just my elbows. And then let my head shift down, bring the left hand out and back to the left ankle. And that's a good cue, right? You want to hold the ankle, not so much like the top of the foot or the toes. That's going to be a little harder on our knee joint. So I want to feel where the band of connection is between my foot and my leg is my ankle. Yeah, ankles are important. Okay. Right, so taking care of just getting some stretch in that ankle. I don't think about my ankle very often in the idea of stretching it, I have to admit. Think about hips, back, shoulders, chest, but ankles. Okay, now when you're holding, you might notice that you want to lower your head down. That's fine. If I do that, I'm talking into my blanket, but you could have your head lowered down into your forearm. But as you're drawing that left leg, the left foot in, sorry, not the whole leg, but just the lower half of it, as I pull that foot, I'm trying to scoop my tailbone under. I'm stuck on a bolster, so I can't do that much movement. But I activate my quad. Okay, now let go. If you haven't already, bring the hands to press down. Okay, now as you come up, lifting the chest. Okay, come back to table, and then downward dog. So you're going to reach your heels up a little bit at the base of that wall. Your head might touch towards your bolster, which is really great. If you have that range of motion, that's okay to do. If you touch the bolster, don't worry, you can rest your head on it. But keeping that lift of the hips. And what's most important here is the circulation to your face and your brain, right? The skin cells of the face, get that rush. Good for the heart to get the head down below the heart. Okay. All right, now bending, lowering down, arching the spine to cow. And then round the back and curl into cat. Chin all the way towards the chest. And then come back on forward. Kind of feel those movements in the upper spine, the uppers. Okay, those are important. So when we come around to side sage on the right hip now, we're going to just pivot our bolster across. We're going to lean down and keep in mind, you do want to feel like you're really like emphasizing this right side, all of it, all the way up to the side of your head. So if you focus on leaning, taking the ball under the left inner knee, if you want, and then I lean down to the right side, and then I add my sand, okay? So as I turn, well, I'm not really taking a deep twist here, it's a side stretch. Okay, so you might need to pull your blanket in. Who knows, maybe you need to fold it one more time on top. Okay, but as you lean down, the neck releases. Now for me, on one side, I feel the neck deeply appreciating the stretch more. On one side a lot, it's a different feel. So you might sort out that movement by moving your skull back and forth. I mean, it's a pretty heavy piece of the body that can help stretch things, right? And the only thing that's going to help really stretch is going to be if you're in a forward bend from standing, stretching the spine. It's going to be upper spine when I'm here, but it affects everything all the way down, right? So if I reach the left arm overhead to my block, if you don't want to use the block, that's fine. You could go down to one or have two or a chair. Yeah, and if you need to take a break and go find some other props, that's totally fine, right? So again, we're really trying to process this practice. So giving yourself that full focus, kind of delve in, breathing and receiving. And if it feels really easy, that's okay. It's okay if you're just lying on the side with some sand, strengthening your breathing muscles, putting some weight into the hip, some bone support. But if you want to strive a little bit, you can always try to get that left leg to reach a little further behind you, because that's going to stretch our abdominal, our psoas. This deeply needs help, right, for all of us, for our sitting culture. But what might be kind of a challenge on this one, I find, is yes, I can try to get the leg back, but I'm honestly feeling the just below the ribs, right towards the hip, a little grip. So what might help you is to come back to that kind of spine movement, cat-cow, just a little bit of arch. Just feel what happens when you breathe and you let the tailbone relax back. Expand the ribs. Take a few more breaths here. Now, when you do come out, we're taking that twist. So we have this elongation, and now we're going to work into squeezing, heating up into the organs. So when I take the sand off, move the ball, just kind of kick it away, see where it goes. And then I just bring the left knee to the right foot, just naturally how it organically sets, and bring your hands back between the bolster and the blankets. And we'll come back to move ourselves to the hands, knees. So as you shift the left knee on top of the inside of the right, we're just going to pivot. So, right, these practices of movement, guiding, and now I want you to have your bolster, just extend it forward, move your blankets to the side, and just the bolster height, nothing more, okay? If you need a blanket under your forehead for this next one, you might add it, but I wouldn't make the blanket too just too bulky, because you want your neck to get a little stretch. So I got my feet a little bit away from the wall. I'm in a kind of a wide reach with my hands on the bolster. I'm going to lower my head down to the blanket. Now, some of you might have your head on the floor. So as the arms are reaching, if you need your blanket higher, then do so, okay? But as the elbows bend, I want you to get a feeling of bending through the arms, like you're trying to kind of, it's like your arms are reaching up, like you're airing out your armpits, right? It is pretty silly looking, but we're just working on our self-care here. So my elbows reach out. I can't really get them to go up very much. In the beginning it did, it worked, but now they're sort of stuck. So I want you to get a feel of movement of the elbows out. That's good enough. Breathe. Okay, now walk your hands over to the right side. Okay, so you're going to go over to the right side and stretch out through that left side body. So I think of this as kind of a side child's pose, even though my hips aren't on my feet. And then walk across the bolster. Crawl your front paws across the bolster to the other side, to the left. And then feeling that reach. My knees could be together on this. I suppose that might help out the spine stretch. Okay, now as you come back up center, okay, we're gonna take that bolster away, and I want you to have it nearby so it's an easy grab nearby. Add a blanket if you like. We're gonna do some quad work, and you might like some padding under your knees. Some of you are fine without it, I imagine, but I want you to be right near the wall with your feet, and then get those blocks. Have them so they're at the lowest setting, okay, under your palms. And you're going to reach the hips forwards, stretch the heart up, okay? These bring the floor up for you, right? The blocks. Okay, now when you come back to a table, okay, you're going to hook the toes under, lift the knees up, stretch the heels up. If the blocks are all slippy slidey, you want to go to the edge of the block with the heel of the hand. This is better for the wrist. And there's plenty of people that like blocks, like I love them for this, and plenty that just completely disagree with it. So you decide if you want to put the blocks to the sides. If they're sliding, you can take them away, or they'll take you away. Okay. All right, now step the right foot forward between the blocks. And I want you to keep the back heel lifted. Yep. The back knee is up for right now. And feel if you can get your blocks to the second or the third setting so the shoulders don't dunk down so much, because the shoulders can get kind of dunky. Okay, on this one, donkey shoulders. All right, so when I lean forward, I'm going more forward than I'm going backwards on this. This feels like momentum this way, forward. So feeling as that back heel is lifted, I want you to start to process into that back quadricep. So scoot the toes forward on that, scoot the foot forward, scrunch the toes so you can move your foot forward. Lower the back knee to the blanket or the flooring. Push the left foot into the wall, and you're going to lift up your chest, stretching through that whole, well, I feel a lot of things, but it is my left front thigh that I feel. If this hurts your knee, then guess what? You just lift it off the blanket. But be careful, you might find the coordination right through the lower spine. Some of the really nerve-rich areas can get a little upset here. So what I find is I'm trying to move my left thigh forward, my back thigh. Come on, thigh. Okay. All right, now when you come back with your hips a bit, I want you to take a reverse lunge. So I just bring my blocks down to the lowest setting. And then I take that reach of my chest down. So I'm still kind of going forward in a lot of ways, but my hips are now tracking back. Flex the right foot. If you want to go a little further down with your hands on the ground, that's fine. Some people like to hold the foot and pull the toes back and just really wake up the calf and the ankle. Good stuff. Okay, now when I guide myself forward out of this reverse lunge, use your blocks at the second to the third setting. Remember, the third setting can be kind of wobbly, so you're kind of dependent on balance now. So as you stride through that right foot, just feel things go forward. Kind of notice, okay, what in my body can go forward? Can it be my chest as much as my knee? So I'm gonna push off the left foot at the wall, spring off the foot, step into both feet now, and just take the arms out for a half sun salute. Feet hips distance, stretch your arms open. Keep your hips reaching back for right now. So your hips stretch back so you support the lower back. Arms forward, palms together. You can't see all of me, I know, but when you come up, you're pushing down through your heels. You're extending your arms straight up to the sky. And as you bring the palms to touching, lift up through the corners of the heart. Really lift. Breathe. It only helps. Okay, have a natural arch in the spine. Don't try to push the tail under, arch the back. And as you open the arms out, hinge at the hips, reach your hips back, bending your knees, bring your hands down to your blocks, and then just take a forward fold of choice, which might mean hands on blocks forward, might mean hold your elbows, or just completely traction the spine by letting the weight of your head stretch out the back. I like this one. It feels interesting in the face, the facial muscles really heat up. This is a good before and after face pose. Okay, so with all that circulation into the brain, nodding your head side to side, and some of us might hold our elbows continuously on this one. Some might hold the backs of the legs, some the blocks. You know, there's something for everyone. Okay, now as the leg muscles really elevate to the attachment, right, to the sitting bones. Yeah, but for sitting bones, right, they would not be legs. So you want to feel that the pelvis is everything, right? I can lift up my hips, I can bend through the knees. It's like an elementary existence, okay? So take the blocks back besides the feet. Any height is up to you. Right? If you like it lower, that's okay. Bring the feet together. And as you step the right foot back, I want you to take a reach through the arch. So I like to feel the wall with my foot. I might scoot a little back and keep that pure lunge. So I'm going to try to square my hips a bit here. So if my back hip is kind of pushing and rotating my hip to the right, I'm just going to look back at that right knee. So it's aiming downwards. Right left knee just above the ankle. Breathe. We're doing really basic skills, right? Basic life skills, right? For good posture. So you might find that if the shoulders are dunking, you got to have your blocks higher. You can always bring your arms, reach your hands on your left thigh if you want to add on. Breathe. And now when you lower the back knee, scoot the left foot a little further forward. So you're kind of just scrunching the toes, moving the foot forward so the back knee can lower, and then ease the right foot to the wall. Okay, now feeling how a foot, just pushing into the foot is going to change the experience of the right quad, right at the top of the thigh lid is not the only thing that feels that impression, but when you arch the spine, I want you to feel that you can look forwards, feel like you're going forward. Maybe even close your eyes and just notice, do I feel like I'm forward or I'm backward? Maybe you're going inwards, okay. But explore the breath sensation. And just feel where that heat is into the hip. It's kind of both hips, really. One's aiming really with the knee, one is aiming down to the floor, at least the front of the hip. And then when you do push back, find how you organize your root muscles here, right? So, we learn the movement, right, by watching, and then we just kind of whip into it. So before whipping into that reverse lunge, kind of feel from the inside like you've got to move your chest down a little bit. And then you got to be careful of the joints. So when I move back, I want to reach my seat back, and then the left foot flings up, right? The foot flexes, as you can see. So sometimes going through that kind of root pelvis reaching back can be helpful for the lower back. Lower the blocks. I think going a little downwards with the hands is helpful, like lower than the high block. But if you're feeling really limited in your range and it's a little shaky, then you take as much height as you need. So when you're flexing that left foot, kind of feel if you almost point the foot or flex it, that how you alternate that rhythm through the ankle joint, through the back of the knee. You can have a straight leg and it still be safe, right? It might almost feel like it's close to locked, but don't lock it. If you can feel the back of the knee and it's nice curve, you're good. You want to get some nice circulation all the way up and towards the seat. Basic musculoskeletal skills. We got those. Okay, so let's add our bolster. So let's go ahead and slide on forwards. Okay, I want you to take a bolster across the mat. And if you have a blanket under your knee, that might be like a little bit more success for where we're going with pigeon pose. But some people find that no blanket is okay. So it's up to you. If you want to add your blanket under your knee when we go across to pigeon with the left foot forward, take a moment to get that. And then walk the left foot toe, heel, toes, heel, toes, heel. And then you're going to come into pigeon pose. So the left knee is going to point to the left side of your mat. And you'll feel that right side of the back get that stretch. That it's actually, it feels like it's a pinch for most people, not a stretch, but the arch is a stretch for the spine. Yeah, I still know that that's true. Like that's stretching my spine, but it still feels like it pushes things in, but it's stretching open the facet joints. So contrary to my mind thinking it. But when I lean forward, I want you to lower down as really as far as you comfortably can. So if you want to use blocks, use blocks. If you take away the blocks, it will be a deeper stretch into the left hip. But just feeling how the spine can actually absorb in a nice kind of widening way in the low back. It's pretty cool how this can widen the back of the pelvis, lumbar spine. So if you reach back, you're going to feel that you've still got a little slight curve here, which is super. And then just let the hips kind of soak up this sensation. I know your mind might be not as happy, but your hips are. Okay, so see if you can settle. Breathe. Yeah, back foot pushes into the wall, maybe. Not everyone's a fan of that. Some people like to bend the back knee. I like to keep kind of working on the circulation around my knee. So pushing into my foot at the wall. Kind of wakes up my hip a little more. Your hip wasn't awake when you got, before you started class. It's awake now. Okay, now feeling how you can go side to side, you can basically move your hip, okay? Even though it seems like it's a left hip thing, that's true. But the right hip is well aware that it's next. Okay, so let things be kind of round and curvy here. Lean to the left hip, walk the hands into the left knee, swing the right leg around. You're just gonna go to the right pigeon. You don't have to walk into it with your foot. So I like to go this variation probably the best versus stepping into it from the lunge, because you can feel the contour and that round curve here on that right side. And then when you kind of flip, so the left foot touches to the wall, the right knee moves out. Now really kind of formulate your plan here. Like, okay, maybe close your eyes and feel, okay, this midsection. Okay, now what's working well? What's feeling like it's still kind of pinched up? So just suppose lowering down could be, I guess, more intense, but also helps you kind of layer the bones. You're doing like your own little research project, right? Into your hips, into your sensations. These are really nerve-rich areas right in our hip. So it's likely going to be a felt sensation overriding breath focus. So then come back to your in and out breath. You can always reorganize, right? You can always add, and I didn't mention this, but on this one, you could use a ball under the rear, right? To the rear. You can just place the ball, and that can be like a nice little cushion, even if I lower down. You can always try it and go, oh, that just kind of expands into my sciatic nerve area. It kind of helps stretch open. So if you've got some of those issues in your tissues, you might practice pigeon pose with the ball. And then you could take the ball out, right? You could do 1 minute of that, and then maybe a minute and a half of this. Okay, timing that sequence, let your spine center. I think it's pretty centered on this pose. Take a few motions of the foot pushing the wall. I think this is important here. Feel the foot to the wall. Okay, now final thoughts on this is to be, I think you want to be really careful about how you're pulling around the knee, even if you got happy knees. Okay. So you want this inner thigh area to really feel like it's trying to get some stretch up into the hip. So you can always touch to the top of the right thigh, right up towards the crease, right to the form of the quad into the hip, and just kind of let that motion out. Like you can use your hand to kind of roll that out. Sometimes everything gets shoved into the joint. And so this is a joint up here too, but the thigh muscles, right? Those can really, they can move, even though it feels kind of stuck, right? Lean to the right thigh and then come on up. All right, and this is the part I want us to really get our stabilizing awareness in our back. So I want you, if you need to do some windshield wiper, get some water, this is a good time. But what we're going to need to do is get our bolster closer to the wall so we can touch the wall, okay? So here is when we push back with the bolster. I'm actually probably almost close enough to touching, okay? And I want you to, first things first, get your ball, get your sandbag, get your block. I think you only need one of these. But the ball might be useful. If you're someone who doesn't like using a ball for twists, you can always use 2 blocks for this. Okay, so let's have our sand, and we're going to move it to the right side. Okay, I don't think you're going to need your belt. I think in the beginning of you learning these, we always use a belt, but let's try without. Okay, so first things first, take cobbler's pose. Okay, so you got the soles of the feet together. And also, if it's possible, kind of even towards the later stages of your practice, like, okay, I'm going to get this stuff. This twist stuff is really rich for your posture, your back, your organs. It's really rich work. It's the advanced work in Iyengar yoga. It's the seated field. So you're sitting away from the wall. You know you can touch it with your hand. It doesn't mean to be your, sorry, not your full palm, but just your fingers can touch the wall. Okay. So having the feet together and this nice arch to the spine, kind of this organized lift. So if I'm sitting on the bolster, it's going to heighten up my hips. They hike up. And my back will have that nice scoop, right? So just let the left leg stretch out from that. Okay, if the left leg, like for me, it's kind of hyperextends a bit, I'm just going to put a ball under the knee. You might not. You might be very pleased with how your leg reaches out. And then you're going to add a block or a ball under the right knee. So if you're not with a ball under your left knee, which is probably just a couple of us maybe, you might have it under the right knee. So you decide. I'm going to go with both. I like to feel, as I'm getting into my life and feeling my circulation and how things do kind of slump a bit, I want to feel this inner kind of rich lift from seated twists. So I like all the support I can get. So take a sandbag to the upper right inner leg. Now think of, as you add your sand, and since you're twisting to get your sand on, you're doing a little turn. I want you to have it like it's a hip hugger. So it's really high up. If you happen to find that you can get it as high up, almost like it's wrapping around your lower waist area. I've always considered getting my belt around the handles and then wrapping it around me, but I've never done it. Okay, so turn to your right, keep the left leg out there towards about 10, 11 o'clock. Don't let it roll in. Just remind it to stay flexed. And then reach back to the wall with the right hand. I always say hand, but it really is, you don't need to push the heel of your hand. I cringe when I see people try that because it's really not going to be the best for your shoulder joint. You just need your fingers to touch the wall. So spider the hand, left hand to right knee. And then when you're turning, you're doing that arm shoulder clock. So I'm turning my hand to the right. So I can do that if it's the heel of my hand is not on the wall. And I'm just going to spiral through my shoulder, right? This whole upper chest, clavicular motion is opening my chest. This is great. So if you were to touch to that right side of the chest, the pec, it kind of swells up on this position, but it's not so much swelling, but stretching. Okay, now breathing below to breathe up to the lung. And now let go of the, push away from the wall, and then you're going to lean to that left leg and let the right arm stretch over, maybe the side of your face, maybe just up to the ceiling. And then I want you to let your head tilt so you're looking up towards the ceiling. Or if you prefer, for your neck meets, you're going to just lean your left ear towards the shoulder, left shoulder, and just turn your head down towards the left leg. So spatially feel, all right, that inner circulation here through the ribs. There's a lot of involvement here with the stretch of the breathing muscles. It's almost hard to attain the pulse of the rib cage and the stretch at the same time. So maybe your right arm goes over your right side of your face a little bit further. See if you can stretch it over to the left. Give it a try. Okay, so this right side is very sponge-like, right? It's expanding. It may not feel like it's contracting, but it's definitely getting that pull. Okay. And now when you come on up, take it easy. Come back just to look forward and just breathe. Kind of notice where you feel that length in that right side. Okay. Now I want you to move the block or ball out from under the right knee, and you're just going to cross the left leg over the right leg. So there's no ball or block under your knees. Okay. So it looks like a pretty intermediate prep, right, for a twist. So from having all this blood flow on the right side, I want you to turn to your left, bring the right arm to either hug the left knee. This is step one. Step two would be right elbow to that left thigh just above the knee, and then left hand back to the wall. Okay. Really let that warmth in that right side of the torso provide you with the actual range of motion to, you're equipped to take this twist, this deeper twist. You're warmed up for it. So left hand just touches, so my fingers touch to the wall. Turn your left fingers could turn a little bit like you're doing that shoulder clock if you want. Breathe. Okay, let's stay with that turn to the left. We're going to really work on that kind of vibrancy in the spine, the inner lift. So now when you keep that left rotation, lower the left hand down to the bolster, and then take that right elbow off of that left leg. And now I want you just to simply bring the left foot into center, right leg goes out. You're going to switch. So the left thigh's got a sandbag. Maybe there's a block under the left knee. I'm going to go back to kind of how I did the first side. Block under my left knee, ball under my right, just second side. Right foot is out towards about 1 or 2 o'clock. Kind of stabilize the right sitting bone. The left sitting bone's going to have plenty because of the sandbag on the top of the thigh. But get that hip hugging sandbag. And then we're going back to the left. So we're going to turn left, right hand to left knee. Left fingertips back to the wall. Just take a little bit of that shoulder rotation, that arm clock. Yeah, I hear it called arm clock, shoulder clock. I don't know what I think is best. But as we rotate, yeah, feeling that heat that comes from twists. Right, you're in the middle of it though in a twist. You're in the middle of the heat of the pose, really. So as you're flexing the right foot, and now we're going to just lean down to the right thigh, okay? And bring that right arm. Now, if you need something under your right hand or the elbow, you can always put a block here, even if it's far away, huh? But see if you can work on this center lift, right? So instead of, dunking, you're breathe in. This is definitely advanced work. So if you're like, can hardly breathe, take it easy, breathe, easy does it. Lengthen through that left arm. You can turn to look up. You can always take another breath, right? As long as you're here, right? It's temporary, but Find that reach of the left arm. I like to have it up towards the ceiling, but then my shoulder gets a little bothered. So then I start to sweep, so I stretch my ribs. Now I want you to really warm up into that left side of the torso here. Can you feel the left side stretching? Let your head turn down if you haven't already to that right side. Okay, now if we had a test, right, this would be a good pose cycle to ask questions on. So I want you to feel how your right foot flexes, toes are up. Okay, now when you start to come up, feel how that right side has that, it's invigorated, right? So when I come up, I take the block out or the ball and then I cross the right leg over the left, kind of set my sand so it's in a good spot. And then I just take that turn to the right. So I want to keep that quality of kind of wakefulness from my left side stretching as I turn to the wall. Fingers, I find myself sometimes getting the heel of my hand. But this way it's a little more dynamic in the shoulder. So my left elbow could touch to the right thigh. I imagine each side you have some differences with how you hold on to that leg. So as we go through our final spinal here, just feel kind of that delivery of inhale. Just let the ribs expand. Give them that opportunity to flow out. And really strengthening into the secondary respiratory muscles here. Yeah, but they're the ones that you feel actually get flexible, right? You don't necessarily think on my diaphragm is flexible or my lungs, but your intercostals are. Okay, now when you get a feel of this turn, you might tip your head towards the side. I'm sure this is happening, right? People are turning their head, tilting their neck, ear towards shoulders type of work. But kind of feel from that inner land of lift. And then just relax the right hand down from the wall, sweep back forward, heart lifting. Okay, so now we'll take the sand off to the side and see if you can stay very solid with your spine perspective here. You're going to move your blanket from behind you and drop it forward to where your right foot is, and then uncross and just turn all the way back to your feet or to the wall. And you're going to scoot your bolster back. Be a little careful here for your hips and your spine. But scoot back, and I want you to lower the back of your pelvis on the bolster and then head back on the blanket. Okay. And this will be nice because we've had this movement in the pelvis, one leg at a time, one leg cranked this way. So now we can just simply take our belt and our legs up and buckle up and take a wide stance. So that whole spine process, which is an actual thing, right? Spinous process. You want to find that there is a really great arch right now in your lower back. So after receiving the twists that we've done many, I do want you to take a few moments to really just let the belly expand after all that motion, right? The motion has been higher up in the belly, but the belly organs get a little bit of tweak, a little bit of movement. So after all the twists and the heat and that kind of cleansing experience there internally, let it be in your ability to flush out and relax that core. Okay, so arms are open, feet are reaching out in the belt. I've got my belt connected and it's in a wide loop, of course, but you might find that you want your feet to circle a little bit here. You know, they're not being stepped on or really told where to go, or sometimes you don't tell them where to go, they just take you places. But see if you can get a feel of kind of freedom through the ankles. And we get a really nice full body treatment today in this practice, where we're going. Okay, so just let the shoulders relax. If the legs are shaky, then you just make the belt width not so much. You just cinch it up, just tighten it down if you're feeling a little bit jittery in the legs. And just meditate for a moment on how the thigh bones really rest down deep into the back of the the hip sockets, right? They drop. Usually they're the other direction almost all the time. So right now, you're reversing that gravitational pull on the muscles. Right? The prolapse, the dropping of everything all day long, year after year. So now it's sucking back up into the hip sockets, right? The deeper layer, pelvic floor, good things here that are happening. This would be one just to be in so that the physiology has time to respond to what message you're giving it, right? Just going in and out quickly is not going to be as healthy of a response for your pelvic floor. The vital organs kind of get the message that we are lifted, we are important. We don't have to drop all day long, right? We can get some circulation, a little bit of stimulation right into the fibers. Tone is what you call it, abdominal tone. Toning the organs. Okay, now simple, just bend the knees. Grab a hold of your belt closest to you, slide the feet to each other, bend the knees again, and then as you take the belt off, let's get our ball. If you don't like using a ball, you can always use a block, narrow, right? The lowest setting on the block, or the ball. Place it between the knees, and then just let the knees go side to side. It's actually the whole leg parts that go side to side. But each time you go side to side, your buttock lifts. Kind of start to free the glutes. So our final spinal is going to be about spine care, right? Through the health of the glutes, and then to deeply stretch the hips and go upside down. Okay, so let the spine just motion side to side. So feel what's not on the bolster that moves, right? It's going to be the mid back. And then the next time you come back in center, just bring the knees towards the chest. They don't have to touch, but you'll push the bolster down away from carefully slow. Don't go too quick. You don't want to just suddenly drop your pelvis firm on the ground, but slow. And you only get one pelvis, so go slow. Okay, and then I just push my bolster up to the wall. Perfect, it worked out. Doesn't always work out that well. Okay, and then we'll lift and lower the hips. So stretch the hips up to bridge. Take it slow for the spine. It's had a lot of work today, right, with rotations and strength. So lift and lower. Don't be too ambitious how high your hips go here. So feel when you lift up, you push into your feet. If you're too far away from the wall, you might feel a little closer, because you'll notice if it feels like a drag on your lower back, like it's just too much, you got to get closer to the wall. And then lower. You want your knees at the right kind of hinge, right? So if I have my legs too stretched out, it's going to be harder for me to lift my hips up. So the closer I am into this bridge pose, right, with my hips further down, just a little bit apart from the knees, as far as my hinge, it's a little easier. Let's take a few more flows, draw bridge. Okay, feeling if the arms are kind of stiff, maybe you bend the elbows so they kind of go towards goal pose. Okay, last one. Belly full. Spine reaches. Okay, bring the knees to your chest. Take the ball under your left buttock and roll out the glute. Okay, so ball to the rear. Any rear will do, actually, whichever one you want to start with. And as you guide across the glute, the reason you feel you go across the glute is because of the ball. So I've got to kind of synchronize my awareness of touching into that part of my body, the rear muscles, the strongest in the body, right? Glute maximus is the strongest muscle. Okay. So as I guide across, then when I come over to the other buttock, just to roll it out, whichever side. We only got two, so again, we're just going to go to the other side and roll and feel if you're tightening through your lower back. So try to glide across instead of trying to pin and arch the spine. Just smooth it out. Like your whole purpose is to massage your glute. Nothing else. Doesn't have to be perfect alignment. Just feel where that right buttock is, or whichever one you're on, and roll across. If there's a little bit of click or clack in the hip, that might happen. There might sometimes be a little bit of a snap, crackle, pop. Some people get that in their hip on this one. Okay. Now, when I take the crossover, I'm going to just land gently on my rear, one rear at a time. And then I'm just going to kick my bolster to the right. Now, I know some of you prefer hip crossover this way. You take the feet on the bolster, you cross the left leg over your knees to the right, sand on the outer thigh. And if you do that and you prefer that, make sure your feet don't slide off the bolster. I think that would be the key. I do like this one if my knees are feeling just fine, because it's got so much integration in the IT band. It really suctions the inner leg, the leg pits, right? The groins get that pressure together, and that's pretty cool to work with science-wise. But this is probably easier on most people's knee and back. So if you're going to cross the leg over to the bolster, go for it. Either way, whether your feet are on the bolster, your leg is crossing over onto one, and then add sand maybe. Some of us add the sand to closer to the knee. Some are a little afraid of that. I find, even though my knees have a little bit of challenge, I feel better when it's closer to my knee. Whatever reason being, it just feels better. So I'm going to go with what feels better. So as the left arm opens, the bottom leg's got to bend. So those of you that have your feet on the bolster to cross over kind of already have that down. So feeling how far your range of motion is, right? You're not using leverage as much on this one, and that can be a little, we don't want to focus on that when we get older, like that extra pressure with leverage. So I just want to open out with the arm, just see what naturally happens with gravity. That's the focus. Opening, breathing, slowing it down. So now feel how that left hip is crossing. Kind of have a little bit of a scan or a snapshot. Kind of use your inner lens of, okay, how far across does this leg go? Where does it feel in my hip parts? So when you change sides, you want to kind of have the same amount of reach in your back as much as your hip. I know that's kind of like the deepest, science you can do in these practices to get balance in the body. So just kind of feel it for what it's worth. Okay, I get my left hip sensation. It's great. So I just slide the sand off. Okay. And I try to go to the other side pretty much in moments. I don't do much knee to chest. It's not great for the SI joint to do that. Some people say it shocks the sacrum. So I have that kind of burned in my memory from training. So I'm not going to shock my sacrum. I'm going to put my bolster to the left side. If you have your feet on the bolster, easy. You just cross your right leg over, let the knees swing to the left. But make sure your feet are on the bolster, both of them. Don't move off the bolster. Those of us that are going to put our bolster to the side yard, we move it to the other side. You might add a ball to the sacrum. I think it's a nice sensation, but I don't know how much that's going to help your alignment. It's just a little bit of touch on the sacrum, like, hey, I'm here, I want you to go that direction. So sand on the outer right thigh. Okay, and then if you don't use sand, no problem. You might feel when that right arm opens, how your head rolls to the right. Okay, and kind of feel, there's likely some differences. We're not taking a video of where your differences are with your leg lift or so forth, but it really is interesting. Like the second side might have some actual visceral differences in the organs. I mean, there are different organs on the side. So there are differences in your alignment anyway, no matter how you cut it, right? So I try to really get my ribs to stretch over. I think of like a typewriter, like shift to the right, ding, right? Stretch open the arm. And you might feel like, oh, that's magic, right? That really helps my interconnections for my spine and my hip. Yeah, you just want the right amount of reach for your hip in this last pose. We got one more. So see if you can just stay a few moments here. A little bit of time. Relax the throat. Okay, now remove the ball if you have it, the sand, push it towards the wall. You're going to want to come to a wall to bring your legs up. If you feel like you're craving knees to chest, that's fine now before you come up to the wall. You might just bring the knees over to the side and just kind of do a little bit of shifting from the back of the pelvis viewpoint, just a little rocking, because that's always therapeutic, right? Rocking is therapeutic. So I'm going to rock over towards the side, roll, rock and roll, and then take my blanket closer towards the bolster, my seat on the bolster on the edge, and then roll and take the legs up. Or all of a sudden they're upside down. Okay. So final pose, taking your sand on either, some find the perspective of sand on the feet to be quite useful for just letting, it just helps, gravity, just this circulation event here with the sand on my feet, and just gravity slowly moves that lymph directionally towards the collarbones. And that's where you want it to aim towards. So that's why we have the bolster into the pelvis. That gets the hips up, the feet up, and then it just slowly drains towards the collarbones, and that's where it moves down through the blood, right? That's where it's going to actually move down through the extremities of, down through the organs of elimination. I don't think there's any extremities of elimination. There's organs of elimination. So cleansing. So my hips want to stay very strongly centered. This is such a great shape for our heart, our vascular support and ease. Let your arms be open. You might just kind of evaluate, if you are an evaluator, doing an evaluation of how the sensation is in the legs. Feel the arch through the lower back and towards the shoulders. And the belly just gently rises and it falls towards the spine. And then blend this into a type of shavasana for you, which would mean you're not really witnessing, trying to do, right? You're just receiving the shape and letting go. Let your eyes close if you have an eye pillow, or just your eyelids as your eye pillows. Resting the face, the eyes back deep into their sockets. And the thigh bones rest deep in the hip sockets on this as well. So there's several sockets right? You can think of the shoulders, how they have their support deep inside the socket. Take a deep breath so that the ribs fill, the belly fills, and then exhale out firm, deep inhale. Just clean out that container, right, of the body that you live in. Relax the brain. Shift the feet a little bit away from the wall. And if you feel like you want to stay right with the feet at the wall, maybe another few minutes, that's completely fine. You don't have to come out of the shape, but just respecting the class form, the form of the time of having a class. We're going to shift the feet off the wall, bend the knees. And then as the knees bend, you might feel that developing story in the hamstrings. I feel it in the glutes. That's where it kind of perks up. So I just let my sand fall off overhead and then hug the back of the legs, right? So you're kind of hugging your hamstrings, but you're probably feeling the pelvis crossover. So important to do this kind of exercise in a day, just rocking the back of the pelvis. You have to kind of be on the floor to do this, but it's quite useful just for circulation to the organs, the digestive tract. And then rock over to one side and kind of give it up. Just let your shoulders drop over. And then once you feel like maybe you have to come up, you use your hands, or you can stay over there. And then take a seat, feel the hips, or maybe you feel the knees reach out. Notice what you feel. Maybe it's just a little bit of discombobulated. Okay, but as you lift up with the heart, bring the hands to rest on the thighs or the knees. Feel the shoulders center back. Maybe your head touches to the wall. Okay, and then as the hands rise up to meet together at your heart, feel the palm to palm. And let's unite our focus, our breath, our practice. Kind of weave that together. Inhale. And with exhalation, bowing into that space behind your heart. In gratitude, namaste. Thank you. Okay. All right. I hope that felt good. Let's not tap the AI button.